All right, so we're going to be talking about, taking everything into account. I really hope you guys like what this is. If you don't like my stuff, that's fine. I do really stupid stuff, and it's understandable if you think it's weird because it is. So we're gonna be talking about taking everything into account and thinking about things that you wouldn't normally think about. So let's say that if I asked you to take a pill and it had a 30% chance of death, all right, you wouldn't take it because unless you're not doing good mentally, but you wouldn't take that pill because of the fact that you would not want a 30% chance of death. But here's one of the things to think about. You always want to have the most amount of information on a scenario. Not always, I guess, but it will benefit you more times than it will not to have more information on a scenario. Because what if you do not want to take the 30% chance of death pill? And I then ask, would you rather take a 30% chance of death or a 60% chance? Because now at this point, you'd be wanting to take the 30% chance because of the fact, it's an obvious choice. And that's one of the things about taking everything into account is realizing, what are the possible benefits that may come with this. Now, this is, not the best example since it's, death. You'd obviously choose the one that's lower. But it's interesting to take into account things that are extra happening. So one of the things is 30% chance of death, 60% chance of death. You would obviously go with 30 just because it's the safer bet. Now, if you hadn't gone through any of it, and yeah, I had just started talking about it. If you then refuse the 30% chance, what if I crank it up and you have to choose between a 30 and a 90? You would have so rather wished that you would have had the information you had now before you had made the choice. And this is one of the things about what's going on in your life. Sometimes you won't take opportunities because it's a good chance that it'll hurt you, and in reality that chance might have been your safest, surprisingly, route to get to a better place. And one of the things is how I could relate this to real life. If you had to take a 10% pay cut just right out, you probably wouldn't do it. Although, what if that was your probationary period and once you get promoted up, you then are making 100% more than you were before. Now, this is something that you wouldn't maybe take into account at the beginning because you'd more so be focusing on the fact that you're losing money. So let's, draw this out. If you're, making 300 a month and you've been making it for a constant time, and then, this new job offers 10%, you'll take a 10% cut to your pay. And, in time, it'll then increase to a hundred, making 100% what you normally made. It's difficult for some people because they don't think they could live, with this. But if you work that hard extra little bit, it's going to be a great increase. So let's just say you're making 300 a month. Let's say the probationary period is 6 months. That would be you made 1,800 in those 6 months. No tax or whatever because we're not doing that. I don't want to calculate that. At the new job, you'd be making 270 for 6 months, and that would then equate to 1620 in revenue to your business, and that's $180. Could oh jeez, I got something in my mouth. I got dog. How did hair get in my mouth? Interesting. That $180 could translate to, depending on what you make, the average salary for most people is about 35 to 40,000. I think it might actually be 50,000, but we'll go 35,000 for now. In that 6 month period, you'd make $17,500, and if you went to the new job, that would be about 3 grand a month. So we'll just say 18,000. You would make only 16,200. And most people won't go for that because it's harder, and in most scenarios, it takes away more of your pay. And people aren't willing to sacrifice that time of discomfort to try to get to a better place. Now, moving on from this point, sorry if the audio didn't line up. I tried to pause it and I accidentally stopped, so it might be a bit of a patchy area. Apologies for that. Now, I'm just going to undo everything because I don't know how to do this, so I'm just going to talk about things. Most of the time, people will not go for that, though, because instead of a 10% cut, it's a 30% cut or more, which could completely harm anything you're trying to do, anything you're wanting to, take, or make. Because if you have, a 30% cut, that out of 3 grand a month would be $900. $900 times 6 months would be $5,400. So if you're making about an average salary and you take a 30% cut for 6 months, that is 5.5 grand after just half a year. Which over a whole, you wouldn't hopefully be in it for a year, but if it did, it would be almost 11 grand for a year. And this is the reason why people, sometimes might get stuck at their level of employment, is because people are not willing to make that 30%, or they are not physically capable of surviving with taking a 30% cut, whether they have a sick person, have a child, or other circumstances. It's difficult to think about, how some people are not physically able to get out because they can't take that risk. But if you are able to take the risks, you should take everything into account. Because if you are going to sacrifice 5.5 grand for a 6 month probationary period, if you're going to get an increase in pay by, let's say, let's be more accurate. Let's say that you're going into a field and you're starting it and you make 3 grand and you get a job offer that's going to pay you 50% more. You will be making 4,500 a month. And with that 30% pay cut, it's going to take a while for you to make up the lost money, but you're going to start making it up way faster. Because each month, with that 30% cut, you will be making $900 less than you normally would. So every time, sorry, let me find my train of thought. Which then, you have 5.5 grand of lost revenue, but you've been making it to where you start to build equity with your new job and getting to the promotion. If you do better and you start making 4,500 a month, that equates to $54,000 a year, which is a really nice salary, especially if your starting salary was 36,000, which is what we were going from, just because 35 was 36 is easier to calculate. If you're making $4,500 a month, you're making $1,500 more a month than you were before. And since it took a while to make up for it, you've lost 5,400. It will take you 4 months to get back all the money you lost and more, because you make 1,500. Month 1 you got 1,500. Month 2 you got 3 grand more than you were making, except you still lost 5,400. Month 3 would be 4,500, and month 4 would put you to 6 grand. 6 grand minus 5,400 would be $600. And if you equate it for, you know, 6 months that you did have that 30% pay cut, it takes 5,400 away. You have already made it back in 4 months and more, and you've made $600 just in that 4 months. After this period, anything after this is profit for what you sacrificed. Although you might have had to work harder, which it does take into it. You have to take that into account. You might have to work, harder for that, so that 600, may not be worth it to you. But as you go on, this is only 4 months. After 6 months of this whole thing, you would have 15, that's 30, $3,600 that you have gotten more than you would have in a 6 month period. Even though you lost 5,400, you have now gained 3,600 because of the fact that in this 3,600 is after you've already made up the 5,400. So you have made back your lost revenue and gotten 3,600. And this is just in a 1 year period. So if you are going to go for something and you might have to risk for it, take into account what you have. You should be saving money almost all the time. Take into account what you could gain from your job and your promotion. Take into account what you have to sacrifice and see if it's worth it to do. Because in this situation, you will be making so much more money a month, which will make it to where you can get so many more things and be saving more and be able to afford better items and have a more secure living. Because once you hit, a certain point, the more money you make, um, the easier it is to save for some people. It should be. But for some people, the income they have, they are barely living off of and are not able to save much. And if that is the case, if you have any money saved at all, if you have enough, you should try to go for something like this. Because this could completely change how you're living, your standard of living. It can make it to where you're comfortably living and able to afford things. And just take everything into account when you're making decisions because you know like I was saying, if you had to choose a pill, if I offered you a pill with 30% chance of death, you wouldn't take it. But if I put it next to a pill with a 90% chance of death and asked you to take one, you would take the 30% chance. And that's something to think about. Is before this, you hadn't known that this was an option and you thought that that was terrible, but looking on what's happening, this is a bad example because, it's not a good outcome, but it's a better outcome than before. And it's something to think about, because if you thought those were just the two options and then, there's a 15% chance, you definitely take that. And that's, one of the things to think about. But back to this, take into account what you can afford to lose and what you can afford to do, because if you sacrifice that and make sacrifices, not able to go to parties as you want, not able to buy all the things you want, not able to live luxuriously for a little bit, but then afterwards being able to have that financial security will make you feel so much better. And these are some things to think about. I am curiosity oh my, unhinged. I hope you like my video. If you do like the video and subscribe, here's a thumb. I apologize for my bad MS Paint skills. I try. This is my second video. Appreciate it, guys. Hope you learned something. Have a nice day.